Being in the gym and growing is actually all about failure. It's literally all about making your muscles fail so they grow. Failure equals growth in the gym. And I think a lot of people haven't quite put that together. The discipline you learn in the gym from pursuing failure in order to grow translates so directly into the entrepreneurial journey.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Daniel Leese Podcast. Thank you for coming back for another episode. And if this is your first time, welcome to the show. Each week we speak to very inspirational guests and talk a bit about life, business, and all the good stuff that comes with it, so that, you know, we can obviously, hopefully, spread some insights and motivation so you can go off and do big things as well. But before we get started, a shout out to the sponsors and some natural skincare items from men. Go check them out. Description is in the show notes, so you can go and find out a bit more about them. But this week's guest, I'm sitting down with somebody we've been chatting for a few months, so I'm really excited to get him on the show. He's a serial entrepreneur. He is a fitness guru, even though he's quite modest and doesn't like me to call him a fitness guru, but I'm going to call him a fitness guru because also, if you're watching on YouTube, he is absolutely stacked. He's had quite an interesting journey because he's also overcome cancer in his life, and it's very fascinating how he was able to overcome this. And he's recently just become a tech founder and doing big things in the tech world. So I'm super excited to welcome this week's guest, Dave Catudal. Did I get that right?
You nailed it, Danny. Thank you. And that, by the way, phenomenal introduction.
Thank you.
Really impressive. Wow.
I was listening to like some of your previous podcasts, and you obviously this is actually the first time we've met, even though we've been talking for a little while. And it like I listened to the stories and obviously how big you are into fitness and health and stuff like that. And I was like, okay, let's see when I meet this guy. And then you walk towards me. You got the bulging chest, the big arms, the big shoulders, you just live in that healthy lifestyle, which I rate a lot. You know, I'm big into health and fitness, and I think it's pinnacle of kind of almost like, I think it's linked to success, being into health and fitness.
I would say so now more than ever. You know, the funny thing is, I'm just going to touch on that because when I see like a jacked founder now, you know, or when I see someone who's really successful in business and they're, you know, they're in great shape, like I'm not surprised, you know, because it's the same level of commitment goes into your habits, right?
Yeah.
And so if someone has the commitment and the follow through to build up their body and stay with those healthy habits, they have developed that sense of inner strength and that sense of focus, and which you can apply to business, you can apply to anything.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I think the old, you know, business belly, you know, the old 9 to 5, the kind of how we used to see successful businessmen, that picture's kind of it's outdated now.
It's changing a lot. Yeah,
for sure. Yeah.
I forgot who said this saying, but it just sat so true with me because they basically said you've got to be comfortable with being uncomfortable, and that's what working out is, right? Because I mean, I wake up my morning. Are you a morning or evening guy?
Oh, morning.
Yeah, I love the mornings.
Yeah, morning, like early. Yeah. I'm done by 9 p.m.
Exactly. Yeah.
Done. Yeah.
And I just literally just love waking up when it's still dark, going and sitting in my garden, having a double espresso, just letting the world, you know, go by whilst everything's still quiet, no one's really awake, and then going off doing a workout. You know,
that's a great way to start the day.
And sometimes even if you're tired, I'm just like, no, and it's got to the point now where it is literally just my morning routine. I can't do a day without it.
I hear you, man. Yeah. That's when that is instilled as like the must do. It sets the tone for the rest of the day, right? Yeah. I think that's hugely important. You touched on something really important, like how, you know, fitness is like that struggle kind of. I was actually on the way over because we've never met. I have no talking points for this podcast, which I love, by the way. And I didn't know what we were going to discuss, but I was hoping you were going to bring up, you know, that fitness element, because being in the gym and growing is actually all about failure. It's literally all about making your muscles fail so they grow, right? So failure equals growth in the gym. And I think a lot of people haven't quite put that together. The discipline you learn in the gym from pursuing failure in order to grow translates so directly into the entrepreneurial journey that if any, you know, entrepreneur out there hasn't yet embraced their wellness, do so. Because once you start to, or if you're just, you know, beginning, like whatever pursuit you're beginning, the gym is a great training tool to remind you that failure equals growth.
Yeah.
And that's been a huge lesson for me.
100%. And also as well, preparation of workouts and nutrition and all that sort of stuff. I think it just leads so well into every day. And I think, practicing your brain again to feel like it has to do something to, just grow really, because
Stimulation.
I was listening to a podcast with Dr. Andrew Huberman.
Big fan.
A lot of people have obviously,
Yep.
I mean, coming into your story shortly, we'll obviously talk about that. But I mean, he's a guru, but he was actually he did an episode with David Goggins, and they talked about the data behind doing things that are uncomfortable. And it actually helps.
Great subject.
Yeah, I mean, it literally, your cognitive behavior improves by doing something. Like you actually growing by just doing stuff that makes you feel uncomfortable.
Yeah, I mean, that's critical. Honestly, I think I'm glad you started here again, because I would probably say that my journey to now has been defined by, as bad as it sounds, like struggle and failure. Leading up to, I mean, my childhood. My brother he was diagnosed with cancer at a very young age, and when I think he was 4, I was 10, and when you see that struggle, when you're 10, you think everything is flowers and everything's easy and and when you see that, you're like, oh wow, that's a major challenge. It's a major struggle. The whole family goes through it. And then, my father got sick after and passed away. And then I got cancer 6 years after my father passed away. So challenge, but that really does strengthen and define you. So I'm thankful for these challenges. I think at the core of it, most people are thankful for the challenges when they can look back from this perspective and say, oh, wow, that really helped me grow. But yeah, I mean, you said it at the beginning, seeking discomfort is one of the most critical things we can do as humans that we typically avoid. But if you avoid it, you just don't grow.
Yeah. So, I mean, that leads on nicely to kind of talking about family life. I mean, just before we get onto that, very quickly, because we just literally went straight in at the deep end.
We did.
Who are you, and a bit about what you do? Quickly.
Back it up. Yeah. Well, it's funny. Again, you're asking great questions. Who am I, right? So identity, defining yourself. It's been a journey, right? So if you had asked me that question 4 or 5 years ago, it's well, I'm a fitness guy. I'm the health guy. It's been Dave the fitness guy or Dave the nutrition guy for the past decade and a half. Which is a great thing, but that was very, very much my identity. That's who I was, right? That was my life path. That was my life mission. I lived and breathed the fitness life, right? And fitness always very holistically, because for me, with my cancer experience, I learned about the natural power of healing at a very young age, which was super important for me. But yeah, when you ask Dave, who is he now? I have I'm looking at things through a slightly different lens. My journey is evolving like all of our journeys does. But yeah, so right now moving into the unknown of the tech world. But yeah, I'm very much you asked a very simple question. I'm very much an educator, someone who likes to learn, apply, and then try to teach others what I've learned as well. Yeah. That's I guess you could say who I am.
Yeah. And your business now, what is it that you're doing?
Lyvely.
Yep. And tell us a bit about Lyvely.
Yeah, Lyvely makes me smile, because Lyvely is, when you find that thing that you just know this is where you want to put all of your energy, that's Lyvely for me. 100%. It's just that it came, and I have the most incredible co-founder in the world, who we share the exact same vision with the exact same energy and relentlessness for this pursuit. So Lyvely it's a tech platform. It's a social monetization platform. Our whole concept was and is, when COVID happened. I think it's funny when you say that word, everyone kind of remembers that time. It kind of seems like it never happened, but it's
so long ago.
It's so weird, right?
But it was such a disruptive time of everyone's life.
Man, yeah, but a great time for growth for a lot of people.
Yeah.
I find a lot of people, it was the worst years for them or the best. It was kind of a very defining moment for a lot of people. So Lyvely came about when myself and my co-founder both saw a lot of our friends and family either lose their jobs or just that sense of freedom was really taken away from a lot of people. And when I say freedom, it was a lot of people who didn't have an online presence. Like maybe their gym was shut down for the trainers. I don't know if you probably know people here in Dubai, coaches. I remember some of our coach friends, we probably have mutual friends, by the way, who were training their clients in parking spaces in their underground building, like just because they couldn't go into a gym because there was like lockdown and all that stuff. So I love that because I think it's like, hey man, you're doing what you got to do, right? You got to pay the bills. But Lyvely really came about when we just saw so many people that if you didn't have an online presence, you were struggling. If you did have an online presence, it just boomed, right? I mean, that's when things really took off for a lot of people. And so the thought process behind Lyvely is social media doesn't pay you, right? So you can be a creator, you can be a great coach, you can be creating amazing content and contributing to this online ecosystem, which everyone who posts content is. We're all contributing to this online system, but no one's really benefiting except for that 1%, which is great for them. But there's a massive gap. Yeah. And Lyvely fills that gap because we say, okay, you don't have to be an influencer or a celebrity online to monetize your presence. If you have, great content, if you have services, come over to Lyvely and you can directly monetize that through a Lyvely profile.
Nice. And that is it, if I'm understanding this correctly, is it kind of almost like the Tinder of the collaboration world, because you're like matching them with people that want their services that will pay? Or
so that's great. I might use that, but we've been called OnlyFans halal. So we just recently
OnlyFans halal. That's amazing.
so if anyone wants to know our elevator pitch, that's it. We're OnlyFans halal. So I'll go deeper into that because we're more than just that. But that's the way to say, okay, I get what you do, right? It's creator monetization. Now, we recently won a social platform of the year from Entrepreneur magazine, which was, we barely launched, right? We're still in beta. We're still with our test user phase. And we've had incredible response, but we're learning a lot, right? Like as a experienced founder, what I've learned is never assume that the first version of your product is right. Sometimes you hit it out of the park. I've done that before with supplements, but with tech, it's a constant iterative process, right? So anyways, back to that. The OnlyFans halal, we won the Social Platform of the Year award, which we're thrilled about. And literally the MC on stage, he kind of there was a couple hundred people there. And my co-founder, who's Lyvely's CEO, she got up and gave a great speech. And, we had the whole crowd was interested, like, what's Lyvely? And then the MC, and CEO of Entrepreneur magazine, he goes, guys, just so you know, what Lyvely is, it's OnlyFans halal. And in that moment, everyone in the crowd's like, I understand what Lyvely is.
Yeah.
So again, it's a creator monetization page where you can monetize your fans, you can monetize your followers, it's an entire social e-commerce shop for creators or any coach or anyone with digital service and content.
Wow. So I mean OnlyFans is not a world that I really from a macro scale, you obviously hear about, but like the actual intricate details of it is so. Do these people need to build an audience through the platform to monetize it?
Good question. No. So it helps, right? So if you have a following, if you have people who are interested in the message that you're sharing through content or through education or through entertainment, those are your super fans, and those are the ones who are most likely to support you, right? Those are the ones that if you pushed a product into that community, they're hot leads, right? These are people who already know you, they trust you, they're following you. So if you introduce something, they're probably going to buy it. So it definitely helps. However, we do have people coming to Lyvely who have no following, but they have a great product or they have a great service. And the way Lyvely works is you actually get seen not just by your followers, but we push you out to new eyes. And that's kind of one of our USPs, is this discovery. So that's, so you don't need a giant following, but it helps. And the other thing that helps, of course, is just good content and services. Right? Yeah.
So what type of creators do you find are signing up to the platform then?
A lot of coaches. So a lot of, I guess that's also who we're attracting in the early days, right? I think a lot of a lot of fitness and wellness coaches for sure. Also creators who, interestingly, even some really big names that we've been taking meetings with, like really, really celebrity athletes who were approached by OnlyFans, but they didn't, for their own branding, they're like, I don't want to be on OnlyFans. Like there's some really big, some professional tennis players, some professional footballers, like household names that have been approached. But then when they hear about Lyvely, they're like, okay, I like that I need that product, right? I need to monetize my fans and my audience. I just don't want to do it on OnlyFans.
Yeah.
So that's one of our major USPs for like the high level celebrity and athletes is we provide them a clean brand to monetize outside of the other alternative, which is OnlyFans.
Yeah. And obviously we spoke about kind of like when the idea started to come around and stuff, but how did you, like, was it like a eureka moment where you was just like, bosh, this is the idea? Or was it something that slowly just like kept creeping up on you?
Great question. It was like a lightning bolt through the head. I was kayaking in Abu Dhabi with my partner and driving home. And if you've taken the drive from Abu Dhabi after you're exhausted, right, it's just a straight line to Dubai. And I'm like, stay awake, stay awake, stay awake. It was mid-lockdown, right? And so there was like some road checkpoints and whatnot and everything. But anyways, driving, and I just like tap my partner. I'm like, put on voice record. And like this idea just streamed through. It was bizarre, like full on download from the universe. And I probably talked for about 30 minutes in this voice note and like just spitting it all out about what this product has to be and the, like competitive analysis about, okay, it's kind of like this platform, but like more with this and this and this. And then I get home, I call my good friend who's my co-founder, and she's very high level lawyer. She was literally working as the right hand to the chief legal officer for MBZ or MBS, sorry, in Saudi at the time for the Public Investment Fund. And she's like, this is crazy. I literally have the same idea. I've been wondering, like, because I don't want to be on Instagram, but I have to carry on my like legal legacy, and we need, like, I want a monetization platform. And literally, we both had like this download, and it came together at the perfect time, and we started building. And fast forward 2.5 years, because it's been a journey. Here we are.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now, this will be a very interesting one to talk about because, entrepreneurship is such a sexy word, but in reality, and when you experience entrepreneurship, it's not that sexy. It's working 24-hour days, non-stop thinking about stuff, constant battering of your own kind of like self-confidence because you're just like, is this a good idea? Not, all these types of things. So let's talk about that journey then. So the idea came up, you spoke with your friend, never started a tech business before. What was the first point of call?
So, yeah, tech is extremely outside my comfort zone. This has been for both of us, right? Like my co-founder is an absolute legend. She's corporate, right? She knows how to build. She's built multiple times billion-dollar corporations. She's publicly listed companies. So I am blessed to have the best co-founder in the world. But neither of us were tech at the beginning. And we used to joke about that. We used to say, like, we're non-tech founders, like, this is so hard. Like, we're employing people with skill sets that we have no idea how to evaluate. Like, we had a really hard time at the beginning because, again, I love this, looping back to the initial discussion, like identity, right? She was a corporate, like I was the health guy, right? And all of a sudden we're diving into tech. We knew the product we had to build. We knew the problem we had to solve. We just didn't have the experience or the skill set to do it ourselves, right? So we started hiring, and it was a journey because it took a while before we got the right team on board that had the DNA, the work ethic, the skill set. And I mean, we're in an amazing place now, but we don't consider ourselves non-tech founders anymore. We're like, we've learned so much on this journey over the past 2.5 years. It's like, oh, we're tech now, baby. Like every piece of software, every tool we use, even down to the APIs, like we now have to have our hands in all of it. And it's been incredibly rewarding, but super challenging.
Yeah.
But, I guess that sums up the entrepreneurial journey, right?
Exactly.
It's constant fires to put out, constant learning, ridiculous work hours, but you either love it and wouldn't have it any other way, or probably not the right path for you.
Yeah, because I was going to say, that's the thing, isn't it? I've got two questions pop to my mind. Is what were the voices in your head saying to you when you're trying to explore how to build a tech business, being that health guy? Because it's not just about what people say to you. It's also about what your own identity is to yourself.
100%. That's
so every time, and the reason why I ask you this question is because every time when I started my entrepreneurial journey, every time something went wrong, my brain was like, see, I told you, what are you doing this for?
Yeah, right.
Did you ever get that?
Oh, yeah.
Oh man, it's killer, isn't it?
Daily. Like the swings of optimism and like the futility of the feeling, like in 1 hour, in one call, in one, one fire gets started, one of many every day, and you just think this is impossible. Like what are we doing? This is impossible. But, and I don't know if you have a co-founder in your business. Anyways, I've had two real businesses, like funded businesses before this. I was a solopreneur before. I've had an exit in a company that had way back, small. So I have experience with that, but I've never really had a co-founder that was like this. And I'm sure she would say the same because we have like this real soul connection. We've known each other for 7 years, and we both think the world of each other. If we didn't have this co-founder dynamic, we would not exist right now.
Yeah.
We would not have made it through these hard times. No way.
Yeah. Unfortunately, I don't have a co-founder. I have a very supportive girlfriend now, which is great.
You need that too.
Exactly.
Yeah,
but I actually heard you say something in a podcast, which was like, it was so golden, because you said if your idea is good enough, you got to share it with someone.
Yes. I'm a believer in that. It's what you can do individually is incredible, and you're in control of that. Bringing in a co-founder, there's always going to be that element, like, I don't control that part of the business. Like, that is a different person with their own ideas, with their own whatever. But if you have that match, you just amplify your potential times 1,000. So it's a delicate situation, but when you get it right, the right co-founder can just it can build the empire.
Yeah. So, as you mentioned, you've done a lot of businesses, you've exited. Now, it takes a very unique human to keep going, and especially as we get on in life, the challenges become harder and the energy tends to have to be more. So I want to get to that point of like how you got to where you are today. So I know we really skimmed over.
Backing up again.
Yeah, exactly. We are backing up. But taking me back to younger Dave, like, how was the family dynamics growing up? I know you obviously had a curveball when you was 10 years old, but what was your like earlier memories of mum and dad working? What did they do?
Yeah, great question. So my family has a very strong work ethic. We always have. Like, I've had, my mother will joke, I've had, like, how many business cards have you had, Dave? Like, that's kind of like an ongoing thing. I've never had a real job. I laugh about that because this is kind of funny. I have 3 siblings, all very successful. No one has real jobs. Like, not one of my siblings has a real job, which means you don't have a paycheck, you have a business, right? My sister is like a New York Times bestselling author, right?
Wow.
My brother is, and she's a phenomenal author. Like when you read her stuff, it's like, it's emotional. It hits real hard. My brother's a celebrity trainer. He took over my Hollywood business and grew it times a lot. Did way better than I in the training business. And my other sister is just incredibly creative, and she has like a home like food delivery service. So we all we grew up with, and thank you to my parents, always encouraging our strengths and not trying to push us into like a box, basically. Like, my mother recognized right away that school, not for me. Right? She was always saying, like, maybe be like an adventure fireman or something, like, I needed adrenaline, I needed risk. Like, that was my path since a very young kid. I used to race motocross. I was injured constantly from either snowboarding or doing something, jumping off things, or things you do as a kid. But I extended that into my teenage years. And like, dopamine risk was always a big thing for me. Like, that drove me, right? So, the normal jobs were just like, I can't do this. I remember so to answer that more concisely is I grew up in a family that encouraged pursuing what you love to do with the belief like it will lead to something.
So sounds like you got a very close relationship with your family, which is incredible because, you know, I haven't done so many episodes now, you know, a lot of why people shape the way they are is due to some really unfortunate circumstances, which is obviously great that you're able. I mean, what we'll come on to now is also an unfortunate circumstance, but at least the bond is still there. So, I mean, I remember, and it wasn't as serious as your situation, but I do remember when I was around, I must have been about 11, 12 years old, where, you know, before that you think life is all roses, you know, hills and fresh air and all that good stuff. But I just remember one day just like it all of a sudden sinking in that like life wasn't as like rosy as I thought it was. Would you say it was the same situation when your brother got diagnosed with leukemia?
At that time, I don't think I consciously thought like, oh wow, like bad things happen to good people, or oh wow, it's not all playtime and toys, you know? I don't think I thought that. Again, that was a while ago. What I think that event was more when my father passed away, because he was the healthiest man that I've ever met in my life, never smoked in his life, never drank in his life, like was built like a Spartan warrior, took his lunch hours and ran or worked out, like literally a specimen of perfect health, to the point where you rarely even see it these days, someone that natural and that like just actually healthy. Incredible. And then this person gets cancer, like a really aggressive cancer. Like they gave him, I think when he was diagnosed, it was like 2 months to live. Like I mean, he pushed on for almost a year, but it was like far gone, right? Like very intense. Anyways, so
because you were about 17 at this age.
I was, I think, I just turned 17 or 16. He passed away when I was 17.
So he was a lot older to process the emotions and stuff.
Exactly. So I don't think I had processed the trauma from my brother, like going to the hospital and seeing him, you know, bald, going through lumbar punctures and blood transfusions and for years, like, you know, like that was his life. He's a tough kid, man. I think I blocked that, you know, I think that was like memory, delete. But it for sure came up in my older years through different forms when you start to process that. But my father was like, it was just like the light switch, you know, it was like, wow, that was a wake up call.
Yeah.
That was intense. Yeah.
And this may sound like a silly question, but you know, after he'd kind of gone, like, what were you feeling at the time? Because you obviously got your mum, who I'm sure was also distraught, and then the rest of your siblings. Like, what sort of emotions were you processing at the time?
Well, my mum's a warrior.
Yeah.
She's a warrior. She had to hold the fort, you know, because we're all young, right? So I mean, when he passed away, my brother was maybe 12, 11. Just gotten over his cancer not long before. My older sister was probably 18, 19. So we're a young family, and mom is holding the fort.
Yeah.
Oh, mama, damn, yeah, she's a special woman. Myself, like I'll be honest, I was a little shit at that age. You know, I was a teenage, destructive, drinking, drugs, the whole bit. So I was kind of numb. You know, I was very pushing that reality away. It was too much for me to process, right? I'm like,
Was that just purely down to the situation as well, or was it something that just arose? Because I mean, I've had that same situation. You know, I was apart from minus the sick parents. You know, I went down that road to process some trauma that I went through, and I just feel like sometimes that's what, you know, as men we don't get, especially us growing up. It wasn't nowadays, like, you know, everyone promotes like talking to a therapist and this and that.
That wasn't a thing.
When we were younger, it's like
No,
you're
walk
a
it
man.
off, man.
So, yeah, keep it.
No.
You know,
Yeah.
guys don't cry. You know, that sort of vibe.
100%.
So
100%.
So do you think it was to do with the circumstance, or was it something that is just kind of like was just boiling up?
I mean, I think again the situation was just so intense. Like imagine your father, your hero, like this person you just looked up to, getting so frail and so sick and dying so quick. It was all so much to process. So I think I got very destructive after that. But what the beauty of all this is that intense, heart-wrenching, traumatic experience. I dealt with it poorly for a year, you know, acting out, doing even more adrenaline, dangerous things, more stupid, reckless things. But then 19 came around, like 17, 18 was like very, very destructive years. And then 19, again, light switch moment where I was like, I want to be the healthiest person in the world. And again, this probably came from a place of insecurity. Like, I want to be the healthiest person in the world because I don't want to get sick. Of course, I know that's not how it works. It's more in the mind. But it was that light switch moment that it was, I want to take control of as much as I can because everything feels so out of control.
Yeah.
And although that may not have been the best way to go about things, like I want to control, it taught me a lot about responsibility, and that put me on my path to taking responsibility for everything, which I believe has shaped the reason why I'm finally, you know, happy, fulfilled, and successful today.
Yeah.
Because I took that responsibility.
What would you say in that moment was your darkest moment, you'd say?
Darkest moment.
Yeah, for you. What was, because I mean,
You're going there, man.
yeah,
I like
I mean,
it.
I just to make you not feel so bad.
No, I love it. This is important.
You know, my dark moment was I was facing 2 years in prison.
That's dark.
And that was, I remember sitting in the cell, looking up at the court, in the court, and waiting for these people to define what my life was going to be like after that moment. And I'm not a crier, but for that moment, I broke down because I just lost control of everything.
I could imagine.
I lost control of everything. And that was my pinnacle moment. So I'm just wondering, kind of like for you to be able to just switch out of it, like there must have been a really dark moment for you where you just like, I can't continue like this.
My brain is now going to some, you know, I can't isolate as like your picture, you can probably remember what you were wearing. Like you're in that courtroom or wherever, and like your fate is being just like that. That's a very clear defining moment. For me, I think because it was such, again, a lot goes back to trauma, and trauma gets usually processed with erasing memories and blurred memory. I just remember that time being so dark and me being so aware, though, that I'm being a little shit. I'm being destructive. I'm being a horrible son to my mother who's holding the fort. It was probably a culmination of these events and these realizations that made me say, this is not me. This is not who I want to be. To be honest, it probably came down, that moment was probably a form of disappointment that I saw in my mother.
Yeah.
Because seeing that would basically be my wake-up call. Like, you can't do this, man.
Yeah. So you managed to turn your life around and you got big into fitness. I mean, I was listening to some of your previous episodes that you've recorded all the way back to like pre-COVID, and I was listening and I was like, wow, like this guy must have really educated himself on nutrition. So
obsessively.
So where did you start? Because obviously, you know, sometimes people don't actually start that journey because they get so obsessed with the end that they don't even start. So
yeah,
what point did you start at? Like, how did it all?
So it's that light bulb moment, that light switch moment when I'm like 19, where I said no more destruction. I want to be the healthiest person in the world. I have ADHD that I've known for a while, but never properly diagnosed but never properly treated, I should say. Treated with things that were off script, which led to some destructive habits. But again, that was all in the past. That was all part of the learning journey, right? But yeah, so when I get into something, I get obsessed and I want to be the best. And I want to be the best, I'm not a team sport competitive person. Like I want to be better. I just want to be confident that I know this space inside and out. So like whether it's a sport, like, you know, I'm a fisherman, I love fishing, right? And like, I'm obsessed with it, right? And like, I'll watch technique videos, you know, to make sure I'm doing it the best. Like, it's just one of those things, right? I just have that weird little, so when it came to fitness and nutrition, it was one of those pursuits where I'm like, I want to know everything. I want to understand like anatomy. I want to understand like where food goes, where it's like how the body really digests, where do nutrients go, how do hormones work, right? I wanted to understand all this. And so that obsessive pursuit made me be able to take a lot of control into my own well-being and pass that on to my clients. I became a successful trainer because the knowledge I was able to pass on, and not only the knowledge, the enthusiasm, that goes a long way, right? Because I was so vibrantly passionate about it that it was just like oozing. People were like, "Well, I want to get on this guy's vibe," you know? So yeah, that worked out really well for me. The obsession route works really well for me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think we're all addicts in our own. I think most entrepreneurs are addicts because like you've got to be addicted to something within that process.
Yeah, you really do.
If you're not addicted to the business, you're addicted to something else, right? I think that's just
there's a compulsion. There's definitely an addictive personality. I think if you went and, you know, interviewed 100 entrepreneurs that are really couldn't have it any other way, there's an addiction at the source somewhere, which usually leads back to trauma. So there's probably trauma, addiction, and then entrepreneur.
Exactly.
It's a route we can take. Yeah.
So you entered in a world which not many people know about, right? I mean, it was at the time, you know, the supplement business. Obviously, you got into training and you went through the whole training process, but you started doing your supplements business and creating supplements. And at that time, it was all a world of marketing, right? It was like you used to market what the brand was. No one ever used to really. Yeah. Everyone used to trust the marketing process rather than what was actually the product.
Yeah, still happens, but yeah.
Oh yeah, for sure. I need 100%. But what made you want to do the supplements?
That's an important question because that I began formulating supplements for myself. So when I was sick, when I got diagnosed with cancer, the one thing I knew was I'm not doing chemo. I'm not doing radiation. I'm not doing that. I was lucky where I had testicular cancer, right? So the prognosis is typically very good. And the procedure is relatively simple. You remove the cancer. It's isolated. It's a pretty simple process. However, modern medicine wants to go the extra step and say, well, hey, that's out, but you never know. So let's microwave you, basically. And I only realized this, I think I have talked about this before. This was a realization I only had years later. I thought I was saying no, because I basically, when I did the surgery, taken out, you know, and then they recommended the course of chemo and radiation, and I just said, absolutely not, I'm not doing it, and I just never came back. As irresponsible and reckless as that was, I know now it was the right choice, but I had to basically take responsibility and say, okay, I have to learn everything about immune system now. I have to boost my own immune system. I have to keep my inflammation at bay. You know, so I was researching everything about, okay, how do I boost my immunity? How do I augment my cellular health? And so that pursuit led me to be my own little guinea pig, you know, like where through responsible research, I found what resonated with me as the right path forward. And so a lot of supplements at that time didn't exist in combinations. It was the old supplement industry was very like creatine, you know, BCAA is very separate. Now there's more proprietary mixes, you know, the blending capacity has gotten much better, right? So now we're able to extract like the medicinal aspect of the plant instead of just having the whole root, you know? So we're now able to make better combinations. But back in the day when I was sick, you know, which was 2003, the supplement industry was basically at its infancy, right? So I had to get all these different supplements, blend them all together. I was injecting vitamin C at high dose. I was doing everything you can based, probably some things.
You was injecting it yourself?
Oh my God.
Wow.
Yeah. Oh yeah, I was injecting peptides are all the rage now. I was injecting peptides in 2003.
Wow.
Yeah, like just
like into the muscle? I mean, this might sound like a silly question.
No,
muscle veins. Like, how does it work?
No. Well, this one was in the muscle. It was called IGF-LR3, which now I realize probably didn't do anything.
Yeah.
But and a couple other peptides that were like fat-based, but IGF-LR3 was directly into the muscle. Again, everything was for me was I need to boost my immune system. How can I do that? And there was limit. I mean, this is when, I wish I do this. This is when we had to buy things off the internet and you can only buy it with Bitcoin.
Yeah.
And so God knows what we probably bought. My brother and I spent our fair share of Bitcoin that we should have saved on little supplements because that was the only way you can do it. That or Western Union, but that's a whole other topic.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's how old this goes back. Yeah.
So you started formulating, but what I mean when we talk about foods, like where were you learning about all the different nutrition and how to do that? Because I think that's another thing is like, what sources can people find that they actually trust? That's going to give you the accurate information.
Great. Yeah, that's still a little bit of an issue. There is no excuse for not having the information because it's everywhere right now and most of it's free. But who do you
trust?
Exactly, because there's more of an agenda now than ever. More personal brands are popping up that want to push a specific narrative that benefits them and not necessarily the end user. Have you ever heard of Dom D'Agostino?
No.
So back in the day, he was kind of my North Star for nutrition. So he's a doctor, like PhD medical doctor, who's also jacked. I think he's deadlifting 600 pounds, like really big boy. So he walks the walk, you know. He was a specialist on the ketogenic diet. So when I decided to heal naturally after my surgery, the keto diet pointed to the most cancer preventive and immune boosting diet at the time that I had access to, right? It was very polarized though, because it was either like keto, which is meat and fat, or vegan. It was like, okay, those are very different diets. How can you possibly both lead to the same general outcome? I resonated more with the keto diet, so I did that probably for a year and a half. I mean, overall, definitely over 2 years, but like I was committed for like a full year post-recovery, and it worked phenomenally. I mean, I'm here, right? So no recurrence. So Dom D'Agostino was my guru at the time. He was the guy that I said, I just resonate. Everything that you're saying makes sense. The science supports it. Now, again, looking back, there were probably other options, but at the time, he was my North Star for, I'm going to trust this guy.
Yeah.
It just made sense.
And how did you go about actually, like, because again, like the whole world of, manufacturing, like how did you go about finding a manufacturer that would make it?
Yeah. So it was raw powders at that time. So I was ordering bulk, like, in fact, before I had a supplement company, my brother started his own supplement company that he was literally encapsulating in his apartment.
No way.
And sold on Amazon.
So he was putting all the stuff.
Everything himself.
Wow.
He had literally bought a pill press, God knows where, probably paid for it with Bitcoin, and off one of these dark sites. And like literally he was making his own supplements, labeling them and wholesaling them on Amazon. And they were phenomenal. He was getting great reviews. But the supplement industry has matured since then, right? I don't think people are still doing that because it's, like you said, the manufacturing processes have just gotten a lot better. Just along the way, I met with different manufacturers until I figured out that most are pretty bad and will take you for a ride and take a lot of money and give you a inferior product. And then I found a couple guys in the industry that I trust that are just, to this day, my go-to guys and just absolute rock stars. And so...
And how did that first business go? I mean, the first supplement business.
Yeah, so my first supplement business was Transcend, and it went well. I mean, that's back to my solopreneur days, right? That's the lone wolf days, which I realized, again, thank goodness I am where I am now. Everything was a learning journey, but I would have done a lot better if I had taken on a co-founder and said, hey, share this journey with me, because like you mentioned, like the lows were really low when you're alone. And building it, and you can't solve a problem and there's no one there to help you. So, but Transcend did very well. I mean, I got to a point, again, run myself, funded myself with 30 grand that I saved up when I was living in Thailand, until I got funding after. But I was averaging like 22 to 30,000 US a month.
Wow.
Selling one supplement. Which was called Cortisone, which was like an anti-inflammatory, anti-stress, adaptogenic supplement, which was a beautiful formula. I'm still, to this day, very proud of it.
Did you ever keep any formulations for yourself? Like,
I have a ton of formulas that I kind of have in the back pocket in case I might want to start up another. Because it's a fascinating, industry to me. So, and stress, adaptogens, sleep, and metabolic health are two areas that really interest me, but not going there now. But this product Cortizen with Transcend, that one product alone was earning about $300,000 a year in my second 2.5 years. Yeah.
What made you stop it all?
I didn't stop. That transitioned into my next company.
Nice.
Yeah. So I mean, I did stop, of course, because it transitioned. But yeah, the region changed. The appetite for supplements changed. So I just changed. I adapted basically and pivoted to what I knew the market needed more.
And is that what brought you to the UAE?
Yeah, it is exactly. Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah.
And that must have been a real culture shock because.
Oof.
You know, you're from Northern America, right?
Yeah,
Canada?
from Canada.
Yeah.
But lived in Bali and Thailand and Brazil for 7 years before Dubai.
Nice.
Like I was a proper digital nomad. I was proper off the grid. Like I don't think I went through a period for probably 4 years where I didn't wear shoes. You know, it was just like board shorts, no shirt. No, yeah, just barefoot on the beach and just with my laptop. You know, I built the entire Transcend. Basically in board shorts, barefoot on the beaches in Thailand.
Wow.
Yeah.
I mean, that's quite. I mean, which part of Thailand though?
Phuket.
Phuket.
Yeah.
I mean,
not
place.
off the grid like Chiang Mai, Thailand. There's a
yeah.
huge digital nomad community up in Chiang Mai,
Yeah.
in the north. But no, I was in the more proper Phuket, which everything you need is right there.
Yeah.
And not roughing it.
So did you come from Asia to the UAE straight away?
I did. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. I worked in Maldives for a couple months as like a nutrition consultant. Between the two, I was in Maldives probably for 3-4 months, and then Dubai.
And what made you get out of the the business of supplements?
Well, like out of the supplement business.
Yeah.
I mean, Lyvely. Yeah. It just so
the supplement business was still going on when Lyvely came around.
Yeah. Well, Lyvely even happened. Lyvely was conceived and initiated before even my last supplement company,
Wow.
with the electrolyte product. It was before that. So Lyvely came first, and then that company came second. But yeah, no, Lyvely has just been that thing that you just know. This is where I want to put my energy.
Yeah. Nice. And you mentioned something earlier on about obviously disease and inflammation, and this is a really fascinating topic that I like to talk about because inflammation, and you've obviously learned a lot about this. And we can obviously educate the audience on this. I think inflammation is one of the biggest causes of disease.
Yeah, so it is, but it's also, you have inflammation. Yes, you're right. It is the biggest cause, but inflammation is also a symptom. It's, if your body is inflamed, that means it's stressed. It's a cortisol. Of course, it's much more complex than that. It's not just a cortisol response, but it's a sign that your body is under, I'm going to say attack. It could be mental stress. It could be emotional. It could be physical stress. Inflammation is basically our body's defense mechanism.
Yeah.
It means like, I'm stressed and I'm fighting something. So which will lead to disease and illness when untreated. But inflammation is actually our sign that, okay, something's going on and you need to change something. So it's a great indicator that something's off. I mean, we all have inflammation in our body to some degree.
Of course, yeah.
Inflammation is not bad. But when inflammation is chronic and out of control, then it's just that it's a warning sign, just like blaring, that most people unfortunately ignore.
Exactly. And the problem that we've got now as well is that it's not just about stress though, is it? It's I mean, even... I heard you talking about stuff to do with like deodorants and obviously when
funny, I was just sending a very good friend of mine was just diagnosed with cancer. Funny, in the manufacturing industry. Anyways, just a great guy, and I was just sent him a message this morning about just put it on your radar that xenoestrogens and environmental toxins are a real problem, and it's something that most people just aren't. They're closing their eyes and ears to.
What is it? You said
xenoestrogens. So xeno just like from outside the body. So like estrogen is from in the body. Xenoestrogens from outside the body. So an environmental cause of estrogen. It's a major problem. Like you've probably heard of BPA.
Yeah.
Like if anyone's ever heard don't leave your plastic water bottles in the sun. Like it's all, these chemicals leak into your water, and it's phthalates as well, but BPA is a really, really, really bad one because it's everywhere.
Yeah.
But yeah, there's a lot of things in our daily life that we don't realize is altering our hormones, even altering our gene expression, and just causing havoc in our system. And it's impossible to avoid altogether, but it's easy to minimize.
Yeah, 100%. I you know, when I launched the natural skincare range that I kind of mentioned at the beginning, and it was down to during COVID. I had a conversation on the podcast, and you know, I got exposed to that world by a guy who owned a wellness retreat in Thailand, and he told me about like all these things, and I actually went away and researched it. And you know, when I tell people about it, you know, obviously, you know, when you do a men's skincare range, some men will turn around and be like, "Oh, what? So if I just use this product, I'm going to drop down dead tomorrow." I'm like, no, but like the point is the inflammation is just like constant, and our body is just trying to fight off these foreign objects that then eventually leads to sometimes unfortunate circumstances.
Exactly, and your skin is a sponge, right? So I mean, as like cream absorbs, right? So if there's toxins in your cream, which there are in a lot, it's just, again, if you do it once, no big deal. If you do it, you know, once a week even, no big deal. But look at what you do every single day, and those are the things that compound and add up to be either a healthy habit or a destructive habit.
So you mentioned a second ago, you spent some time in Brazil, Thailand, Bali. I wanted to ask you about your moment with ayahuasca. Because I actually did a podcast.
Did I talk about that ever on a podcast?
You did once.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
And but you were like, I'm not going to get into this. But I was like, I've got to get into this because I did a podcast with somebody and they was in a really dark moment of their life, and they did ayahuasca, and they said it just opened up their eyes to so many different things.
Yeah.
And I know it's like a buzzword nowadays, right? It's like
that's another thing. It's so funny. Like, I was injecting peptides in 2003. I did ayahuasca in 2010 because I lived in Brazil in 2011. I lived in Brazil, and I literally lived in a treehouse in the jungle. I was it was called Mata Atlântico, so the Atlantic rainforest, right on the north coast of Bahia, like way north Brazil. It's where capoeira started, and it's actually the home of Santo Diamond, Diamante. So it's the like the religion where they're taking ayahuasca at a very young age.
Yeah.
But it's also where a lot of the shamans are from. So I was very fortunate to be able to experience ayahuasca in its most natural environment, literally from 65, 70. Honestly, she looked amazing, but she could have been 80. This old shaman woman who owned a cacao plantation and only came to the city like once a week to bring her chocolate, you know, and every now and then she would take on some ayahuasca, inductees. And I was very fortunate to be one of them. That was my first time. And then, of course, that opened up my eyes to, okay, this is really something, wow. And then it became a little bit more of a practice. But yeah, I mean, the first time was hard to describe.
Yeah. Can you?
It's all hard to describe.
Yeah, because I've heard the first initial kind of like moments is not too pleasant.
Well,
because some people say it clears out your system.
Yeah, it could be. So it's. I don't. My brother-in-law, he's probably not watching this, but so he was with me the first time, and he had cancer too. Crazy. He had the worst kind of cancer, and it's a phenomenal story. You have to look him up. Tommy Ribs, one of the better endurance athletes in America, who was hit with the craziest cancer you could imagine, was given zero chance to live, was in a coma for 3 months, my sister's husband, and pulled through miraculously. Anyways, whole other story. So we did ayahuasca together, and his experience was horrible. I remember him like curled up in the fetal position. There was a lot of purging, a lot of vomiting. But my first time, and I don't know why, but I spent about 6 hours just smiling to the point where my face hurt for a week. Like and I remember the shaman and her apprentice were pointing at me and laughing because like I was half in, half out, but I was just on another planet with happiness and euphoria to a bizarre level. I don't know why, because it wasn't always like that, you know. But my first time was literally 6 hours with a grin from ear to ear, and, you know, downloads and, you know, all kinds of information that I'm still literally probably processing 10 years later, because you try to quantify it and try to package it and like, okay, what did that mean? Like, why did I learn this language without words and what? It's so deep, but it's
Do you remember all the memories from it? Or
I don't. I wish I did. I remember the takeaway was, no one needs to speak. We all speak a language without words, and speaking is pointless. And I still can't quite figure out what that means, but it made so much sense at the time and for the days after. It was like, no, we don't need to talk, man. We can just send out our. It's all about this, like. There's an understanding that is happening and a communication that's happening without the need for words. But this is why it's hard to talk about it.
Yeah. And you went back for a second time then as well?
Oh yeah, and third and fourth, yeah.
Oh wow, so you've done it a number of times
Oh yeah,
now.
yeah, I lived in Brazil for a year.
So and was there anything, I mean, because I suppose like what a lot of people want to know about is like the experience and what makes you keep going back?
Well, that's something you'd have to, some people don't go back because some people get terrified. Or some people think like, I'm done, you know, like I did ayahuasca, I'm good, you know, I've purified up. But the reality is it's an onion, where we're all onions, right? You just got to peel off layers.
Yeah.
Ayahuasca is a great peeler of layers, you know, but there's always going to be more layers. But for me, I haven't done it outside Brazil. So it's been probably, 10, 11, 12 years. I don't have a desire to do it again unless I return to Brazil or somewhere there, you know. It is just very authentic to me. But yeah, who knows if the opportunity came up. It's the thing is with Ayahuasca, if it calls you, it calls you. If not, I wouldn't go out seeking it. I think that maybe that's a sign that you shouldn't be doing it.
Yeah.
Just me. But when it really falls into your lap, it's like, okay, I should probably do this.
Is spirituality a part of your life?
I mean, yeah, big time. I will admit I push it aside as far as like the meditation thing. Like I used to meditate constantly. Like when I lived in Bali, like I lived in Ubud, you know, and I was like all super zen. Yeah, but the problem with that, I was super zen, but I was also super not productive.
Yeah.
Right? So I'm kind of battling this hustle, you know, make shit happen, but then also inner peace. And like, so it is a balance, and I do what I can to balance it out, but I'm certainly neglecting that area of my life right now. Consciously, I'm aware.
Yeah.
I used to do breath work a lot. And like deep breath work sessions that are really painful, like 3 hour, you know, conscious connected breathing. Thanks, Stella, if you're watching. Yeah, no, that's for me. It's cyclical. For me, it's cyclical. It's like I'll go through a phase where like I'll be really into that for a little while, and then I'm out of it, and then it'll call me again, and I'm back in and back out. But right now I'm in an out phase. It's get it done.
So I will leave all the information on Dave's company Lyvely in the show notes. You go check it out. So if you're a creator listening to this and being like, oh my God, I need a piece of this, everything will be in the show notes. So go check it out. And on a final note, to be able to get amazing guests like Dave on this show, all I need from you is to press the follow or subscribe, whichever channel you're listening on. So if you could just do that for me, and if you've loved this podcast just as much as I have, just give us a 5-star rating on any channel that you listen on, whether that's Apple Podcasts or Spotify, and we will see you next time.